Recording has started.
Swim toward her. Her red dress spread out in the water and I seemed to stun. I'm wealthy, but every day I pretend to be the same to chase girls. I think dating with my real identity is too boring. Thank you for I think we
Ja, ek sien so. Wat sê jy, Ryan?
gave me the perfect chance to get close to her, so I decided to keep pretending. I won a girl over with just sympathy, so I told her part of the truth. I'm actually the owner of the run.
Hoeveel mense verwag jy, Henry?
Weet jy Johan, partymal ons kry tot so 12 toe op stadiums, maar ons begin op tyd. As die ou late staflak dan ons werk op die uur, so jy kan laat waai. Dit word opgeneem en op YouTube gesit, so die ou wat die eerste stuk mis kan dit gaan haal op YouTube.
Okay, so ek moet maar begin.
Ja, laat waai.
Okay, ek gaan net my kamera aansit en kan die ouens ten minste sien hoe lyk ek voor ek weer afsit. Good evening everyone. What have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 students. It's a privilege speaking to you tonight. I think we're going to see each other for about 12 sessions or something moving forward, of which it's my first one tonight. Oh, my call sign. ZS6 Juliet Papa Lima, as well as ZS1 Juliet Papa Lima. It just depends on which part of the country I am finding myself in. So yes, that's my call sign. I've been an amateur since 1982. I wrote my first exam when I was still at school, failed technically horribly the exam, and then wrote it when I was a student and passed. So since then I haven't looked back, enjoyed the hobby. So yeah, let's get cracking. I'm going to turn my camera off. And let's share. Here we go. Okay. Just give me a thumbs up if people can see the presentation.
I can see it.
Okay, you can see it, and I assume my audio is still fine as well. So yeah, thank you. We're going to do 3 chapters this evening. I know some people are concerned about the time. Well, let's see how it goes. Tonight we're starting to dig into the radio. You've been doing a lot of lectures on the components that you would find inside radios, but tonight we're starting digging into the radios and seeing what makes them work. Let me see why this thing doesn't want to go on. Here we go. Just to recap, last week you did resistors with Henry, and on Tuesday you did capacitors and inductors with Almiro. Just to recap so your memory comes back, when we work at AC frequencies, alternating current frequencies or radio frequencies, we don't look at capacitance and inductance anymore. We look at what we call reactance, which is the AC equivalent resistance of a capacitor and an inductor. And these formulas, I'm sure Almiro did them with you on Tuesday evening. The reactance of a capacitor at an AC frequency is 1 divided by 2 times pi times the frequency in hertz times the capacitance in farads. And that would give me the reactance, or in inverted commas, the AC resistance of my capacitor. And the same goes for an inductor. The reactance of an inductor is 2 times pi, the frequency in hertz times the inductance in henries. Not Henry HFE, Henry's the electrical term. And that gives me the reactance or the AC resistance of my inductor. And this is important when we start looking at tuned circuits. But before we dig into the tuned circuits, just to recap some of the theory you did under resistors. Now there's a big difference, and I don't know if you can see it. If I put two capacitors in series and I apply a DC voltage across it, the capacitance reduces. But when I work at AC frequencies and I put two capacitors in series, the reactance or the AC resistance, if you want to call it that, of the two capacitors together goes up. And have a good look. You'll see there on the screen, I've put a little minus in front of the reactance on both of them. If you remember, or going back to your lecture on Tuesday, reactance for a capacitor and reactance for an inductor is out of phase. On a capacitor, current leads voltage. On an inductor, voltage leads current, but we'll recap that as we go along again. So just take a good look at that. If I add two capacitors in series, reactance-wise, the reactance would go up. If I add two capacitors in parallel, the reactance of the two capacitors combined actually reduces. So this is sort of the same theory you did with resistors a couple of lectures ago with Henry. If I put two resistors in parallel, the resistance goes down. If I put two resistors in series, the resistance goes up. The same goes for reactance. If we look at inductors, exactly the same thing. Two inductors in series, the actual reactance of the two inductors combined goes up. They get added together. If I put two inductors in parallel, the reactance of the two inductors would go down. So yeah, I hope that sinks in. Let me just take a break and make sure everybody's with me. Okay. Now we're starting with a lecture for tonight, actually. That was just recap. Tuned circuits is when I start combining inductors and capacitors together to perform a specific function for me. You can compare it to some extent to your property where you stay. If you only have a capacitor or you only have an inductor, it's something similar to having a property without fences. In other words, anything can come in or can go out. But when I start adding fences to my property, I can control where and what can come in and come out of my property. And it's the same when we look at tuned circuits in terms of radios. A tuned circuit creates barriers to unwanted stuff. Let's put it at that for now. If I want to stop unwanted stuff in my radio, or I want to prevent unwanted stuff from leaving my radio, this is where I start using tuned circuits. Now, a tuned circuit, we said it's a combination of a capacitor and inductor. And the characteristic of a tuned circuit is at resonance. In other words, where the place where you are happily married, where the capacitor and the inductor are happily married, the reactance of my inductor and the reactance of my capacitor is equal. If I want to give an example, let's say C5's reactance is 100 ohms. L5's reactance is 100 ohms at resonance. Okay? And now already you can see what happens here. If the two reactances are equal, the resultant reactance I get at resonance is 0. So in other words, these two, this capacitor and this inductor combined in series, at resonance, this tuned circuit has 0 reactance or 0 resistance. Let's say it's a perfect short circuit. So you can already see, if I want to get rid of something, I can short circuit it out if I have a resonant circuit. Or if I want to pass something, let's compare it to a water pipe with a tap. In other words, at resonance, the tap will be fully open. So as much as possible, water will flow through the water pipe. And this is what happens with a series resonant circuit in a radio. Because the reactance of the two components equals each other, it becomes 0. Now we've got the opposite. If we add the capacitor and the inductor together in parallel, let's take the example again. The capacitor is 100 ohms reactance. The inductor is 100 ohms reactance. So at resonance, the two of them are equal, 100, 100. So if I do my mathematics, you will see you divide, or you end up with a result that says 1 divided by 0, which mathematically is indefinite or infinite. So the impedance or the resultant reactance of this parallel circuit will be infinite. It will be infinite ohms. So it will block. In other words, nothing will be able to pass it. It will stop stuff from getting past because the reactance will become infinite if I am at resonance. Okay, how do I determine where the resonant of a circuit is, a series circuit or a parallel circuit? There's a formula which is in your manual. It's called the resonant frequency is 1 divided by 2 pi times the inductance times the capacitance. And that would give me the AC frequency where the circuit would resonate. Giving a couple of breaks so that it sinks in. Okay, let's carry on then. Reactance of a series tuned circuit. This is in your manual, so I've just put it in here so to explain to you again. Remember we said at resonance, my inductor's reactance and my capacitor's reactance is equal. So if I look at this circuit is resonating at 10 megahertz, which means then my inductor is sitting, let's say, somewhere around 400 hertz. One cursor sits there somewhere around 400 hertz. And my capacitor, 400 ohms, 400 ohms. My capacitor is also sitting around minus 400 ohms. So plus 400 minus 400 gives me 0 ohms. So that's the resonant point of my circuit, my series circuit. Why I've put this in so that you can see when I'm below the resonant frequency of my circuit, my reactance goes all the way up, and yet it reaches a point of about 1,200, 1,300 ohms. That is below the resonant frequency. Above the resonant frequency, it goes all the way up to about also 1,100, 1,200 ohms when I'm off resonance. So I hope this graph makes sense to you. At resonance, XL and XC are equal. So the resultant reactance of the circuit or the impedance of the circuit is 0 ohms. If I work below the resonant frequency, the impedance is high. And the further I go from the resonant point, the higher the impedance is. And also, when I go above the resonant frequency of my circuit, it also goes up, all the way. So that's the characteristic of a series tuned circuit. So in other words, let me give you an example. The antenna that's sitting on my roof of my house, I've got a feed line that is coming to my radio. So if I only want to listen to a radio station operating at 10 megahertz, in this case, let's take this example of the graph. I've got a radio station at 10 megahertz. I will put a series tuned circuit in series with the antenna and the radio, so that at 10 megahertz, I get maximum signal for reception. And the further I go from 10 megahertz, the more it blocks unwanted frequencies. Because unwanted frequencies does a lot of other things which we don't want. We'll get to that in one of the other chapters. But that's a typical application of a tuned circuit, is I have it in series with my antenna, and when I receive a station at 10 megahertz, I put the tuned circuit on 10 megahertz to give me a maximum receiving sensitivity. And the further I go from 10 megahertz, the less interference I will have, because the impedance goes up, 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 up both ways. If we look at a parallel resonant circuit, exactly the same theory entails as the formula. At resonance, in this case, they've taken 10 megahertz again as a resonant. Sorry, let me go back. If I take 10 megahertz as my resonant frequency, the value of my inductors reactance and the value of my capacitors reactance is the same. Okay, and my impedance is infinite. It's maximum, absolute maximum. Right. And when I'm away from resonant frequency, the impedance comes down. So where would I typically use this again as well as an example? Again, I've got a radio station. Sorry, I keep on clicking. I've got a radio station at 10 megahertz, which I want to listen to. So I've already ascertained now, I've put the series circuit in series with the antenna, so that at this frequency of the radio station I want to listen to, I get maximum signal. And anything else, the impedance goes up to prevent it from receiving those signals. If I now add a parallel circuit also to the antenna, from the antenna to ground, I add a parallel circuit. You can see any signals that are not at 10 megahertz will be short-circuited to ground. And then once I reach 10 megahertz where I want to listen, that parallel circuit, which is now sitting in parallel on the feed line coming from the antenna, has got an infinite impedance. So it means it doesn't affect the reception of my 10 megahertz station. And as I go off frequency to down that way, it becomes a short circuit. And as I go up in frequency that way, it tends to become a short circuit to short out unwanted signals. So already there's an application of a tuned circuit in my radio. The one that's in series passes maximum signal at resonance, and the parallel circuit will short circuit signals which is off resonance. I hope that made a lot of sense. With time, Henry, 19. Okay. The last thing on tuned circuits I want to give you is quality factor. It's also in your manual. There is no such thing in life as a perfect capacitor and a perfect inductor. Well, there isn't a perfect battery. There is nothing that's perfect in life. Human beings aren't perfect either. And the same goes for our radio circuits that we use in the radios. They're also not perfect. They have an internal resistance which decreases their effectiveness or their ability to do their work. And one of the things we use to determine how good or how bad my capacitor or my inductor is, I have a thing which I call the Q factor. Now you can have a look at the formula already and you'll see. Let's say my capacitor has got 100 ohm reactance and it's got 100 ohm internal resistance R1. It gives me 100 over 100, which is 1. So it means the quality factor for this capacitor is 1, which is really, really bad. You are typically looking for components which have quality factors in the order of 100 and up when you start doing tuned circuits for radios. So the higher the Q factor is, the better the capacitor or the inductor will be able to perform its function as either a tuned circuit or as a filter, which we're getting to a bit later. So if you see this in your manual, the quality factor is reactance over internal resistance, and it's the same for a capacitor or inductor. It doesn't change. So yeah, if let's say the capacitor's got 100 ohm reactance and it's got a 1 ohm internal resistance, it means it's actually got a quality factor of 100, which is pretty good. It's not exceptional, but it's pretty good. So that's quality factor. Okay, that's tuned circuits. Now I'm going to stop. I'm going to watch my other screen. I don't know if there's any questions on tuned circuits before we head off to the next one. If there's anything that's unclear, I'm not going to page through the to the manual. You can read the manual yourself. You're welcome to pop me an email if something comes up later. My email address is my call sign 06jpl@gmail.com. So if you want more data or more info or more clarity on something, just pop me an email afterwards on 06jpl@gmail. Okay, Marty, oh, she just posted in the chat. Okay. There's no questions, then we need to move on. Chapter 12, decibels. This is actually easy one, but a difficult one to achieve. Decibel, as you can hear from the word decibel, was actually part of what Graham Bell did when he started fiddling with telephones way back when in history. And the reason why decibel was developed as a unit of measure is because it is a logarithmic unit of measure. So in other words, it's not like going up a staircase. All the stairs from the bottom to the top, if you go up a staircase, is the same. The height's the same, the width's the same. So it's 1 stair or 2 stairs or 3 stairs or 4 stairs. They're all exactly the same. When we get to decibels, the size of the stairs gets bigger with every step. So even if you have 10 stairs or 10 steps leading up to the top of the staircase, each one of those steps will be substantially bigger than the previous one, so that it's easier to represent the gain of a circuit. Now, why do we need decibels as well? In a radio, we can have anything from a gain of 1 to a gain of a couple of million. If you look at modern radio equipment, you could have typically a gain of anything from 1 to a couple of million. So to make it easier to represent the gain from 1 to a couple of million, we would use the decibel notation. And I've put this one in here just for you to give you an idea. 0 dBs or 0 decibels is dead silence. There's nothing. That's the baseline, the ground, the starting point of the equation, 0. People whispering is approximately 10 dBs or 10 dBs louder than dead silence. Trees or wind blowing through the trees and ruffling the leaves, that gives you about 20 dBs of noise above dead silence. And so it carries on. You can see right at the end, a fireworks display could be 140 dBs over dead silence. So that's more or less dBs. And let's look at the formulas that may make a bit more sense for you. Okay. dBs is a logarithmic ratio of two values. Now, already you heard when we looked at the previous graph, I said 0 dBs is dead silence. There's nothing. So everything was referenced on that picture to 0 dBs, which is dead silence. When we work with radio equipment, we also have a reference point. And if you look at the formulas that's in your book, there's two of them that stand out, which is important. The one is called the power ratio, and that's a relationship or a ratio between the output of my transmitter and the input to my transmitter. So, for example, if I have 10 watts out and I have 1 watt of RF power in, it means it's 10, so that will translate for you also into 10 dBs if you go and look in your book. Voltage is 20 times the logarithmic value of the ratio. Now, this is important stuff for you. I just want to see where we're going to next. Yeah, let's go to the next one. I'll come back to this one. Decibels is important for amateurs because it defines gain or losses for me. Right? One of the things you will hear amateurs talk about, and it's referenced in your manual, is the gain of an antenna. So if an antenna has got 3 dBs of gain, 3 decibels of gain, it means that it will radiate effectively double the amount of power that's going into it. So a gain of 2 in power would give me 3 dB. So gain of antennas is defined in dBs, and it's important for me as an amateur to know what the gain of my antenna is. The loss of my feed line. If I want to know how good my reception of signals are, I need to understand the losses in my coax or my feed line that's connecting my antenna and my radio together. I need to understand the loss of my connectors. So there's a lot of places in the amateur hobby where we're using dBs to, and I'm just going to go back to this one, where we're using dBs as a method to define gain or loss of something. And the two important ones to remember, you'll see there's some practical questions at the end of your chapter. When I work with power, with watts, I work with 10 times the logarithmic value of the ratio. If I work with voltage, I work with 20 times the logarithmic value of the voltage ratio that I'm measuring. That's an important one. Don't get tripped by that when you get a question to answer in the exam. Power is always 10 times the logarithmic value. Voltage is 20 times the logarithmic value. Because of that, for example, if I look at the loss of my feed line between the radio and the antenna, if I have a 3 dB loss on my feed line, it means that only half of the power I'm applying to or that comes out of the radio, only half of that power reaches the antenna. The other half of the power is actually lost between my radio and the antenna if I have a loss of 3 dBs. You can go and do the mathematics. If your power out is 5 and your power in is 10, 10 times the log of that will give you -3. If I look at receiving signals, if my feed line from the antenna to the radio has got a 6 dB loss, -6 dBs of loss, it means I'm only receiving half the voltage at my radio compared to the voltage which my antenna produces. So if the radio station that's exciting my antenna produces 1 millivolt, it means if I have -6 dBs of loss, I only get 0.5 of a millivolt at my receiver. So again, you can do the calculations. 0.5 times 10 to the -3 on top, divided by 1 times 10 to the 3 at the bottom, times 20 log, will give you -6 dBs of loss. Okay, one thing, I think it's one of the questions as well, that's why I've put it on there for you. When we work with dB ratios, okay, the assumption is always that the impedance of both the ratios, or both the values we add in the ratio, is measured at the same impedance or reactance value. That's the one assumption that is made in calculating the dB value for a circuit. One to remember, I think it is one of your questions. We said dBs are always a ratio. So just for you, and you're going to see this appear when you start playing with the hobby. dBW means that it is decibel watt, and its ratio, its reference to 1 watt of input power. I just want to go back here and then we can go through this. Okay, so if we looked at this, if I calculate the gain or the loss of power ratios, these two values can be anything, the input value and the output value. And the reading or the value that comes mathematically out the equation has got the unit symbol of dBs. Now, if this unit symbol becomes dBW instead of dBs, it means this input value is always 1. And you only change this value. So it fixes, it references this to a specific value. And then what they do is they put an extra symbol behind the dB notation. That's what that means. As we get back here. Okay, so dBW means that input signal or input value in the formula is always 1. dBm means that reference, that P-in value is always 0.001 or 1 milliwatt. dBV means that if I go to that 20 log formula for voltage, it means that the voltage in is locked or referenced to 1 volt only. dBu is referenced to 0.075 volts. dBi is referenced to isotropic antenna output. This is the things you'll see with the gain from antennas, and I'm not going to go too far into it, but just so that you see it when it appears. And then dBd is reference to free space dipole output.
Excuse you,
Yes.
Ek is jammer om jou aan die rede te val. Daar is 'n vraag in die pool wat vra wat is isotropic?
Well, okay. Okay. A soccer ball is isotropic. So if my antenna is radiating in all directions, up, down, left, right, north, south, west, in all directions, in free space equally, it's an isotropic antenna. That's what isotropic means. It is an antenna that's radiating in all directions equally. That's why typically they would make an isotropic antenna's reference point 0. It's like dead silence when it comes to sound. An isotropic antenna's gain is 0. It radiates in all directions equally. I don't want to go too much into the antennas. You've still got that lecture, but you cannot, when you work with radios, you cannot create energy. You can only transfer energy from your radio into free space. Okay, so when an antenna has got gain, it does not mean your antenna has created energy. It can't. It can only transfer energy from your radio into free space. So what happens when an antenna's got gain? It means normally that it is not radiating in all directions like a soccer ball. For example, a dipole is a good example. If you go to Krispy Kreme and you go and buy yourself a nice glazed ring donut and you turn it on its side, that's the typical radiation pattern of a dipole antenna. So you can already see that Krispy Kreme ring donut is not radiating in all directions like a soccer ball is. That's why a dipole has got a gain over an isotropic antenna. But yes, isotropic antenna, compare it to a soccer ball. It radiates in all directions equally, or a volleyball or a tennis ball. It radiates in all directions. I hope that answered the question. I think it was Peter. Go back to the chat.
But not exactly the same than an Omni, which is more linear, correct? In a 360 degree form.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then the last one on DBs is DB-SPL, which has got to do with noise. In other words, if I complain to the city council about noise disturbance, they come with a portable noise measuring instrument to see if the noise is exceeding the municipal allowed threshold. DB-SPL is the reference, or the unit they use, and that's reference to 20 micropascals of pressure. Sound in air is pressure waves. It's not electromagnetic waves like radios.
The suddenly broke down. He got trapped. Famous.
Johan,
Yes.
back to your dipoles just quickly. Is a
Yes.
dipole like your donut? Is it then a little bit more directional? Because you said you turn the donut on its side.
Yes, it is more directional. So in other words, if my dipole is, let's say it's 2 lengths of wire, which is facing north-south, okay? That means my antenna's radiation would then be more in the east-west direction than in the north-south direction. It will be much weaker radiating north-south than what it would be radiating east-west.
Okay, thank you.
Since he wanted beautiful girls, Tony decided.
Come on. Okay, that's decibels. Any questions on decibels? The lecture notes in the manuals you have is actually quite good, but yeah, we just need to go through some stuff. Hopefully makes it easier for you. Okay, last one for the evening then is on filters. Now, filters is the gate in your property. Without that gate, anybody will come into your house or will go out. So the gate stops people from coming in or out. And when I work with radio equipment, filters becomes a very critical element of my radio, because it's got to keep unwanted signals from influencing my reception where I'm listening to. Or it's also got the other purpose of stopping junk from going out of my radio. In one of the next lectures that we'll do, where is it? Frequency translation. When we get to that one, you'll see why filters are so vital, critical, important to prevent radios from being dirty. And that you'll hear the amateurs talk about cheap Chinese radios versus high-spec Japanese radios. And in many cases, the big difference between an expensive radio and a cheap radio lies in the filters. The cheap radio can't keep unwanted noise in or out, where the expensive radios are actually superb at keeping unwanted noise in or out. So yeah, let's dig into filters. These come out of your manual. This is the type of filters that we use in radio equipment. First one is called a low pass filter, which is quite obvious. I have all the lower frequencies above a certain point, which I'll discuss now, is passed, and all the frequencies that are higher than the selected point is prevented from going out. It's stopped. High pass filter does exactly the opposite for me. Anything above my selected frequency is passed, and everything below that frequency is rejected. Band pass filters. This is now typically a good gate in your property. It will only pass certain frequencies from one point to another point, and everything below or above those frequencies, it will block it. It will prevent it from passing. Notch filter, it basically passes all frequencies, but then at a specific frequency, it would notch that frequency out. So in other words, it would short circuit it out. So let's go quickly back to our theory on a parallel resonant circuit. If I have a parallel resonant circuit and I put it in parallel with my my signal, when it's not at resonance, sorry, I've got the wrong one now. It's the series circuit. The series circuit, I would put that in parallel with my signal. And then when I get to that resonant frequency, the notch of the series resonant circuit would short it out to ground, and I won't see that signal. It's a typical application of a series circuit. Okay, that's my 4 types of filters I get. Now, filters are normally defined by the 3 dB point. So in other words, I talk about the selected frequency. So my selected frequency will be 3 dBs. In other words, in terms of power, would be half the power than my output here. That's my selected point, and that's how I define the filter. So if I want a 10 megahertz filter, it means the 3 dB point will sit at 10 megahertz. And the same goes for this one. All of them, you'll see they keep on referring to 3 dBs. That's a typical way of defining a filter's cut-off frequency, where it is supposed to be suppressing a signal. Yeah, I've just got a two circuits for you, which we'll discuss a bit further now. The one is a capacitor and inductor circuit, which I'm using as a filter. The other one has got funny little emblems on, which you haven't discussed yet, but it's a crystal filter. And we'll look at a crystal filter now, why we sometimes prefer to use a crystal filter rather than using a filter made out of inductors and capacitors in series and parallel. So those are two, and I think they're both in the manual, if I remember correctly. Okay. Now, this is where the differences come in now. Obviously, this is the circuit for a low-pass filter, which I've put up as an example for you. So my 3 dB point is at, in this case, it's just 1 kilohertz, but it's fine, doesn't matter. That's my 3 dB point. So a single inductor and with a single inductor with a single capacitor filter, that will give me what we call a roll-off, looking something like this. So if you look at this, you'll see at 1 octave in frequency, I've only dropped by 20 dBs. Okay. If I build a better filter, I can improve the slope or my drop-off, and I could get over 1 octave in frequency, I can get double the amount of attenuation, 40 dBs. Now, things like crystal filters are sitting here. Number 5 would be a typical crystal filter. Even number 4 also represents a typical crystal filter. So you can see that from 1 kilohertz to 10 kilohertz over 1 octave, I can get rid of signals quite aggressively compared to a normal inductor and capacitor filter. So that's filters that we use in our radio equipment. It either stops frequencies or it passes only specific frequencies.
It's very interesting how similar it is to electronic mixers for sound with filters.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Very similar. We
The
just
only
don't go into
difference
the
is,
effects.
yeah, the only difference is in this case, we're trying to prevent unwanted RF signals from reaching our receiver. We just get rid of the dog. Hey,
The principle stays a lot the same at least, so it makes it actually quite easier, at least for how you go on the EQ and cancel certain actual audible sounds out, but in the same case, yeah, it's just now going into something that's non-audible, if I could put it that way, in a more mechanical way, like the actual electronics cancel it out, than just digitally.
yeah, sorry, I just got rid of the dogs. I didn't hear everything, Ryan, but yes.
Sorry.
What happens nowadays is obviously the theory in your manuals is still based on old discrete technology. But the modern radios typically digitize the signal, and electronically in software they apply filters and they get rid of what they don't want.
Correct. Just like in the mixers that you get nowadays in sound equipment, that you do it exactly just in the audible spectrum, but this is doing it mechanically in a non-audible, in the same principle, just in the physical odd way. Like how you build the circuit to cancel that out.
Yep. Okay, that's the end. I made it in an hour. I don't know if there's any specific questions anybody wants. Yeah, open.
Miskien moet ons gou die vrae in die handboek deurgaan, Johan, as jy kan.
Okay, maak so. Kom ons gaan gou deur chapter 11. Let's have a quick look. Questions on bottom. Summary. Okay. At one particular frequency, resonance of a capacitor and inductor takes place. At this frequency, what happens there? I don't know if anybody wants to take a guess. Peter is typing.
Can I go for D?
Yes, D is correct. Capacitive and inductive reactances are equal. But remember, when you do the mathematics for your exam, remember the reactance for capacitors, you have to put the minus in front. And the inductive reactance, you leave that positive. Because if you forget the minus and you start adding things together to get to a final value, it doesn't always work out. So remember, if it's capacitors you're working with and you're calculating reactance for capacitors, always add the minus in front of it. Okay, parallel tuned circuit. Let me make this a bit bigger. Okay. Parallel circuit impedance at resonance is low, high, indefinitely high equal to 10.
Isn't it C infinitely high?
Indefinitely high, yes. Yes. Series tuned circuit impedance at resonance is low, high, indefinitely high equal to 10. Only closest one we have there is low. It should be 0, but it is low.
Or infinitely low?
Or infinitely low. Yes, okay. So you'll remember that one. The Q of a parallel resonance circuit determines the losses, the value of capacitance required, the inductive value required, the value of increased current through the coil and capacitor at resonance.
Q
what did
factor.
we say?
I think it was B.
The Q is is determined by the internal resistance of the component. So the higher the internal resistance is, the higher the losses in the circuit would be.
So
like
what?
your car battery, if your car battery's internal resistance is too high, not going to start your car. The same with capacitors and inductance. If the internal resistance is too high, my Q is very low, and because the Q is so low, the losses of the circuit is fairly high because the energy is wasted in the internal resistors.
So which one is that now?
A, losses of the
A.
circuit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The selectivity of a resonance circuit is greater if the Q is low, decreases, is high, remains low.
Selectivity.
Yeah. Let's also, you can also, let's call it the quality.
Yeah, 5A?
No.
Not that one. Selectivity. Are we above the division line or below the division line?
Okay, remember, the selectivity of a resonance circuit is determined by the Q factor. So the higher the Q factor,
The better. 5C.
Yeah, 5C. So the better the Q factor is, the better my selectivity would be. So it is 5C. Okay. Resonant frequency of a tuned circuit consists of a 10 nanofarad capacitor in parallel with a 10 microhenry inductor. Is approximately 1 over 2 pi FL. It doesn't say. Oh, parallel resonance circuit, yes. Henry, have you got a calculator there? I haven't got one handy.
Got one
Ja,
right
ek
here.
het hierso. Ek maak dit 'n handkalkulator. Ek het nie een op die skerm wat ek kan share nie.
Well, okay, het jy op die skerm ook gehad. Calculator. Calculator. Got it. All right.
Daar sê.
There we go. What's my calculator? And the formula is 1 divided by 2 pi LC. So 2 times pi times 10 nanofarads. So that's 10 to the exponent
XY.
minus 9 times 10 microhenries, 10 exponent 6 minus equals that, and 1 over x. Where's my 1 over x on this calculator? What's my 1 over x? Oh, yeah, 1 over x. Okay. Now, what did I do wrong? 2 pi LC 1b.
Okay, Johan, ek dink jou eksponent wat jy gebruik is dalk nie reg nie. Daar die derde knoppie links onder derde knoppie op dink ek is jou eksponent wat jy soek.
Hierdie ene.
Nee, links onder in die hoek. Derde
Oh,
knoppie
hierso
op.
10 to the x.
Ja.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Clear, sorry. 2 times pi times 10. Nee,
Is.
nee, sê hy nie.
Okay. Ja, ek kan nie mooi sien nie, is nie mooi daai.
Okay, but it is just calculating. I'm not going to struggle further. Let's finish the same with the other one. That's just applying the formula. So for question 6, I'm just going to pull this in. Question 6, this is the formula we would use for question 6. 1 over 2 pi LC. So L needs to be in henries and capacitance needs to be in farads. So obviously 10 nanofarads means it's 10 times 10 to the minus 9 in terms of farads. And inductor 10 microhenries is 10 times 10 to the minus 6 henries for the inductor. So that's the formula that we would use for that one. Okay. Now this one, we would use. Oh, okay. Peter is clever. 7C. He's already calculated that one. This one is easy. We would use these formulas. There's these formulas. Okay. XL and XC is the same. There. We will use these two formulas for calculating that question. It says you have a 100 microfarad inductor and you wish to create a tuned circuit with a resonant frequency of 3.5 megahertz. So in other words, I then take the formula for XL and I calculate the reactance for that inductor at the frequency is 3.5 megahertz, and I get a certain value. And then I go back to the capacitance formula and I substitute XC with the value I calculated here, because remember we said at resonance XL and XC is equal. in value. Different polarity, but they're equal in value. So then I can calculate the value of capacitor that I would need at resonance. Okay, 21. And the next one, 8. Yeah, I see that one's also worked out for us. 25 microhenries would give me the value of inductor. So the same, I just now start with this formula to calculate the reactance, plug the reactance value in here, and then calculate the inductance from that reactance that came out of the top formula. So those are the formulas to use for these two questions. And this question, the formula to use is this one. Okay. That's the formula to use for that question. Okay, let's go. That's it. Oh, and then let's go to decibels quickly. Here's a table in your textbook. For example, 6 in terms of power, 60 dBs of gain is 1 million times of gain.
So you just count the amount of zeros.
And 50 dBs of gain is effectively 100,000 times in gain. And now if you see here, this is where I keep on talking about 3 dBs. So I said if you lose half your power between the transmitter and the antenna, in other words, 3 dBs of loss, it's half of my power that reaches the top. I should actually use this side, minus 3 dBs. If I have minus 3 dBs of loss, I get half my power at the top. Same with antennas. If my antenna has 3 dBs of gain, it effectively radiates twice the amount of power than what I put into the antenna. But now remember, the power is not the same in all directions. That's an interesting one. Let's have a quick look here. Here's the questions. Okay. Okay, my gain increases from 250 milliwatts to 1.25 watts. This equals to a gain of, and where's my formula? Calculator, what happened? Here we go. So my 1,25 divided by 0.25 equals that is 5 times, and the log of that times 10 equals 6.97 dBs of gain. Quick and easy. Let's have a look at the next one. Okay, 1B, yes, correct, Peter. This one says transmitter output power is 100 watts, is connected to antenna with 11 dBs of gain by means of a coax cable with a loss of 1 dB. The effective radiated power of the transmitter, coax and antenna combination, what would that be? Okay, now I've got to look at this. It says my antenna has got a gain of 11. There it says gain of 11. But it also, sorry?
-1 because of your coax cable.
Yes, so I'm losing 1 dB in my coax, so it leaves me with 10 dBs of gain. And if I go back to that table, 10 dBs of gain is effectively a gain of 10. Okay, those two correspond. Go back here.
100 times 10.
So 100 times 10 is 1 kilowatt is number C. That's how we calculate it. Okay, now we're working with voltage, 40 volts. Okay. and we've got 20 dBs of loss. I've got an attenuator. An attenuator is a loss. It's a it creates loss. It attenuates the signal. So the 40 volts will be attenuated by 20 dBs. So what would be my voltage impedance? Okay, what will my signal be after the attenuator? So I've just got to take this formula. Let's go, yeah, again, decibels. I've got to take this formula and just work it backwards to get my oh, okay. Some people are faster in mathematics than me. 4 volts RMS number D. But you use this formula and you just rework it. Remember, now we're using the 20 log formula, not the 10 log formula. That's why I said don't get caught in the exam between 20 log. Whenever you see voltage, remember 20 log, 20 log, 20 log. Whenever you see power, 10 log, 10 log, 10 log. That's all you need to remember for the exam. Okay, a power gain of 4 is equivalent to power gain of 4 is 6 dBs. But we can calculate it as well.
Isn't it on the table?
It is on the table, yeah. It's on the table, 6 dBs. Yeah.
4B.
But we
4B.
can use this formula to calculate it as well. You'll also get the value. Okay. Signal again, we're looking at watts. So remember, we're going to use 10 dB, 10 log as our reference. Signal with a power of 1 milliwatt is applied to the input of an amplifier that has a gain of 13 dBs. The power output of the signal will be over the mathematics tonight. So let's go back to the table. Go to my table now. Right. Scroll past the table. Okay. So 13 dBs will give me again somewhere between 10 and 100, but we can calculate it. Okay, we know it's not 10 and it's not 100, so it's likely to be the 20 milliwatt one if we do the calculation.
It can be 10.
No, 10 dBs is 10 times gain. So 13
10
dBs will be 20 milliwatts. 10 dBs of gain is times 10. So another 3 dBs on top of that is 10 times 2 is 20 milliwatts.
So you're using 10 log 10 and then you put in the bracket the 20.
No, you use this one. P out is, I mean the reverse. All I did was this. Show you what I did now. Doing it the lazy way. The table. Oh, here we go. Okay. 10 dBs of gain is times 10. Okay. 3 dBs of gain is times 2. So if I have 1 milliwatt, or was it, 1 milliwatt times 10 dBs of gain gives me 10 milliwatts. Plus I add another 3 dBs of gain, so it's 10 times 2 gives me 20 milliwatts. It's a lazy way of doing it.
I just ran that through calculator, 19.95.
Yeah, 20 milliwatts.
That's all of it.
Filters.
Please.
Filters.
Okay. A bandpass filter allows all frequencies to pass, attenuates all frequencies, allows signals between two frequencies to pass, increases bandwidth of a receiver.
Band pass.
And pass.
Sounds like a party pass.
Allows between two frequencies. C.
C. It allows. Let me just go. Look at that one. So band pass allows us between two frequencies F1 and F2 to pass.
We pass a specific band through the filter.
Yeah.
If you want to put it in such words.
Band stop allows all frequencies to pass, attenuates all frequencies, decreases bandwidth of receiver, attenuates signals between two frequencies.
2D.
2D, yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
Also
because it
called a
doesn't
notch.
attenuate.
Also called a notch filter. Okay. Low pass filter attenuates all signals above a known
Above,
cutoff
yeah.
frequency.
3A.
It passes all the low frequencies.
Correct. High pass filter is the opposite of that one. Attenuates all signals below a known cutoff frequency. Okay, a circuit which passes electrical signals above a certain frequency but blocks electrical signals below that frequency is called a
Band pass filter.
circuit that passes all electrical signals above a certain frequency but blocks electrical signals below that frequency.
High pass.
That's a high pass. High pass.
Mm.
That last half already tells you it blocks the lower
Okay.
part of it, so you want to pass the higher part.
Yeah. High pass filter.
Correct. The purpose of a low pass filter is to attenuate all frequencies apart from a specific one, pass all frequencies apart from a specific one, pass all signals below a specified frequency.
6C.
C.
Yeah.
Okay. Purpose of a high pass filter. Pass all frequencies where we now pass all below.
7D.
Attenuate all frequencies apart from a specific one. Pass all frequencies.
Yeah. D.
D.
Attenuate all signals below a specified frequency. Drop signals at the bottom.
Just
Remember, attenuate drops.
Can we define the word attenuate because it's a fancy word for
Yeah.
something?
But attenuate just
Attenuate-
basically cut off or reduce the signal.
If let me explain it to you, most probably the easiest terms is if I've got a hose pipe and I stand on the hose pipe, I would attenuate the water flow through the hose pipe.
Okay.
You restrict it. You restrict
I
it to a
restrict the water flow through the hose pipe. And exactly the same in radio equipment. If I attenuate the signal, it means I weaken the signal. I reduce the level of the signal. The signal coming out of the circuit is not the same as the signal going in. It is less.
So you're not blocking it, but you're
not blocking it.
You're
reducing
weakening
it.
it.
No.
You're
That's why I
weakening
say
it.
the easiest for you to remember is a hose pipe. You stand on a hose pipe, you attenuate the water flow.
Mm.
Okay, where were we now? A low pass filter seems to be letting through harmonic components that is supposed to suppress. The design has been checked and all component values are correct. The reason might well be that
Any of the above.
Any of the above, yes. I think you did that with Almero. Some capacitors are actually useless at radio frequencies, and some radio frequency capacitors are useless at DC, and vice versa for inductors as well. So your components have got to be picked for the correct RF application. Construction is important. That's why you're using coax cable and not a single piece of electrical wire running from the transmitter to the antenna.
Preferably LMR 400.
Yeah, so you've got to make sure you're using the right construction techniques, interconnecting wires, and then obviously two inductors can influence each other very easily because they store the energy in the magnetic field. So if two inductors are too close to each other, you would find that they are mutual. There's a thing they call mutual coupling. So the one inductor couples into the other one and it affects your circuit.
Don't mix
if you
high and
look at
low
it-
voltage next to each other.
Yeah, if you look at a transmitter circuit, typically they would turn the inductors every time 90 degrees to each other. So the first inductor in the circuit would, for example, face north-south. The second inductor would face east-west, and then the next one will face north-south again to prevent that coupling between components close to each other in the circuit. So yeah, any of the above is correct. Okay. Phew, that was a
All of it.
mouthful. Have we lost anybody, or is everybody still with us?
I think some, just like myself, might have to go through the theory more in depth on understanding the theory deeper.
Johan, nou
Ja.
verstaan ek ook DB. Vir die eerste
Well,
keer.
No, look, when you get to fiber signals, I remember learning from a fiber signals also attenuation
Yes.
that, yeah. I see you're a Mukatik fan there with the logo at the bottom. I work with the networking industry also quite regularly, actually. It's my career side of
Right,
things.
you want to make sure, can I stop the recording?
Yeah.
Okay, 100%.
I
I'm going to
believe
stop the recording.
But
Okay.